All right, everybody. We've just started the webinar here. We have attendees kind of trickling into the room. So that just takes a minute for everyone to link and join. Thanks everyone for attending today. This is the second webinar in our fall webinar series. And this particular one here today is mostly a case study with the university, Seton Hall University, and the township of South Orange Village collaborating together to create a tree inventory. And so we'll hear more about that project and the ins and outs of that. So presenting today, myself, Evan Sims. I am a Planet Geo employee, and I am the sales director for software. I am an arborist by trade, and joining me today is Wanda Knapik. She is an instructor at Seton Hall University. She teaches environmental studies courses. I will share a little bit more about Wanda in just a minute, but this is who is presenting today. So as mentioned, what I'll cover is just a real brief introduction to my company, Planet Geo, and some of the services and products we offer. And then we're going to dive right into the case study. And Wanda will be presenting on our case study today. Then we'll, after her presentation, we'll do a live demonstration of her TreePlotter application and take a look at some of the data that she and the students and collaborators have collected so far. And then we'll open it up for questions. And then finally, I will be showing the ISA continuing education credit code at the very end. So that will be the final slide of the presentation where I will provide the code that you can submit for CEU credits. You do have both a chat and a question option in your window, so feel free to pop in comments or questions. I will likely answer questions at the end of the presentation or right after Wanda's part of the presentation. So feel free to put them in as questions come up, and we'll address them later on in the presentation. So again, just a quick overview of who Planet Geo is. We're an urban forestry software and consulting firm, so a company who focuses on urban forestry and technology, based in Colorado, but several of us, including myself, I work out of California. We're kind of spread out throughout the country in different offices. One of our core products is tree asset and management software. That is our product section of the company. We also provide consulting services in the form of tree inventory and assessment services, so going out and collecting tree inventory data. Geospatial mapping services, where mostly that consists of urban tree canopy assessments. And then we also offer urban forestry consulting, mostly in the form of urban forest management plans. As far as the TreePlotter software suite, since we're talking about software today, TreePlotter Inventory is our flagship product. So that's the product we'll be highlighting later on in the webinar with Seton Hall's application. We also have TreePlotter Canopy. So that is a tag along with the urban tree canopy study. It allows you to view the data in our tool. TreePlotter Parks, very similar product to Inventory, but allows you to map and manage other assets other than trees, park assets. And then TreePlotter Jobs is our newest product coming out later this year, early 2020, and that is geared towards tree care contractors, specifically for to map and inventory trees and connect those to estimates, work orders, invoices, and schedules and other workflow tools. So that's our software suite. I'm going to now hand it over to Wanda, and I'm just going to give you a little bit more context onto who Wanda is. So Wanda In addition to being an instructor at Seton Hall, is the owner of the ecological design firm My Local Garden LLC. And she partnered with Gourmet Dining in 2011 to design and create the organic vegetable and herb garden located next to Xavier Hall. She teaches in the garden, focusing on practical skills, growing healthy soil and food, and solutions to reverse global warming. She connects students with nature on local organic farms, hikes in the woods, and with tree planting and pollinator habitat projects. She is the tree inventory project leader, collaborating with the South Orange Environmental Commission to create an inventory of campus and public street trees with the help of student and resident volunteers. She works with the Facilities Engineering Department, engaging the students in the Ecology Club and student government to grow a greener campus. She is a member of the Bernardsville Environmental Commission in Somerset County and the director of the Bernardsville Community Garden. She has over 10 years of regenerative farming experience on organic and biodynamic farms and gardening experience in urban and suburban client gardens across New Jersey and New York. So with that, I also want to thank Wanda for presenting today. I think her project has always been a real interest of ours here at Planet Geo. We've been following it closely, and really appreciate, Wanda, you taking the time to present today. So with that, I will hand over control and you can start sharing your screen and your presentation.
Thank you, Evan. And can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, great. And so I'm looking to get my screen shared here. So I'm just not sure why.
Oh, sorry, that's my fault. I need to stop sharing my screen. 1 second there. All right, there you go.
Okay, thank you. Let me hop in here and share. Hold on, let me close this and bring up my PowerPoint. So here we go. So I wanted to start with saying that, to say thank you to the Planet Geo team and to, getting back to here at the beginning of my PowerPoint, sorry. So here we go. So we call this Project TIP on campus, and it's a tree identification and inventory project. It started in 2018, so we've been at this for a year. And so it was a project that we wanted to engage the students in understanding the world around them. So we teach in the classroom, and then we also want to give practical project work and real world examples to students to help them integrate the information they learn in the classroom with real life examples. And so we work with our grounds crews initially to say, hey, can we help with inventorying the campus trees? We see how beautiful they are. We know there's a lot of them, and we don't know what they are. And so Jeff, who is our grounds crew director, was thrilled because he was always wanting to have an inventory, but it was in bits and pieces and not aggregated in one place. And he was very, very, very interested in technology solving his problem, and the technology of cloud-based software to have the data accessible to him and his team, his grounds crew. It's a large urban campus, and for an urban campus, it's very green. It has a lot of trees, it has a lot of grass, a lot of flowers, shrubs. There's a lot to maintain. So, so Jeff was thrilled to have the software to use and our students to help with gathering the data. And then the Facilities Engineering Department was the one that stepped up and said, this project is interesting enough to us that we will pay for the software license. And so we started with having the students learn about the apps that are available to identify trees, and to have them learn about all the aspects of an arborist's toolkit. And so the first thing was, they have their phones, and they very adept at getting the apps up and running and figuring out which one they like to use best. And so they liked out of all the apps, Picture This was Picture This, I mean, I would say Pictures This and Plant Snap were the two favorites. And so it's they take their phone, they snap a photo of the leaf and or a branch or a tree or the the bark, and and the apps just come back and give suggestions of what the tree could be, and then they Google search with that photo and kind of triangulate to make sure that they are identifying it correctly through the apps, because sometimes the apps, you know, they say it's the two apps don't always come up with the same type of tree, and so they're like, okay, so which one is it? How do we figure out which one to use and enter into TreePlotter? So so the apps are very, I mean, it's just using technology these days, how powerful it is that we have these, you know, this little gadget of a phone, and how much we can do with it to do a project like this. It was just it's amazing. So so anyway, so then in addition to the apps, they have their favorite websites that they use to actually understand where to get information for tree identification. So so they use their apps. They ran around campus in
sorry,
teams.
Wanda, can
Yes.
I just quickly interrupt for a quick
Sure.
technical pause? We see your presenter view, so you may want to restart your presentation because we don't see a full screen view. We can see your slides. We just see that kind of split presenter view.
So like this, and then like this. Is that better?
Totally better. Yep.
Oh, it is. Okay, good. So sorry about that. So the student feedback, once they were identifying the trees on campus and working in teams, their feedback was that, of course, they were thrilled to have a real life example of a project and an assignment that was fun outside and looking at trees and hugging trees. So I also told them every time they, you know, they were out there, they had to hug trees and say thank you and I love you. And of course they love that. So so anyway, so they were outside and it was the fall of last year. So the leaves were on the trees and it was easy to do with leaves on the trees. And so their observations were that there's so many different types of trees on campus. The trees were beautiful. They, like, you know, you run around campus, you don't even like see the trees because you're running to class, you're not even really looking. But once you actually stop and have an assignment like this and see the trees, they really really appreciated the beauty of the campus and how much work it was to maintain and prune and maintain all these trees. So and they wanted to plant more fruit trees. They were like, let's just plant food and let's have more fruit trees. So so that was interesting observation. And of course on campus it's a lot of ornamental trees because it's an urban landscape and these trees are not, it's not a forest, you're not in the woods, you're not in nature, you're in a manicured environment. And so there's a lot of ornamental trees and different varieties. So beautiful, different flowering trees, etc. So when they were actually using the TreePlotter software on their phones, of course, they were saying, of course, on the map, it's kind of harder to see the tree locations, the exact pins. What they would do is they would map the trees on their phone, and then they would go back to their computer and then kind of verify that that little dot was actually not in the street, that was actually, you know, in the right spot on the campus, you know, landscape lawn area or whatever, that they moved the little tree dots around on their computer inside. So they, you know, they used their phone outside and then they validated the data inside. And they didn't have to be validated or verified, but because it was an assignment, they wanted to make sure it was perfect. So that's what they did. So you can absolutely do all of this on your phone, of course. And I think that the little iPads are the best. When you can use an iPad, it's actually the best gadget to use for this project. So most of the campus trees are now in TreePlotter. Not all of them have been identified, but they're all in there. And it's up to Jeff's team now, the grounds crew, to go through and verify that it's all accurate, and then to put in the maintenance information. So so there's many benefits, of course, to the grounds crew and to the students to having this aggregated and accessible inventory. So so we're thrilled that we have this data, and that it's better to have some data, even though, like, we don't have maybe photos of every single tree on campus loaded up in TreePlotter. We don't have the photos yet, but we have the data, which is very useful. So as I was explaining to the South Orange Environmental Commission, as we were now moving into the public tree inventory in town, I was explaining how the data sets of information around the trees that are on campus, and we're part of the community, so that's our part of the subset, and then the public tree data, that there's separate data sets within the TreePlotter software, cloud-based software system. So I created this diagram to show how on the left, you're inputting the data with your mobile device. The actual platform is where you access and store and access the tree data. And then on the right is how you can then take the data, create reports, analyze it, and there's really cool graphs and really cool ways to view the data in the TreePlotter software, and then you can extract it into an Excel spreadsheet if you want to share it with your maintenance crew, or with just a spreadsheet list of trees or something. There's different ways to export the data to integrate into like your existing tasks and the existing way that you organize pushing information to other people. You don't actually have to have everybody accessing TreePlotter. You can actually then just have reports moved to via Excel, or however you want to move those reports around campus or around the different commission members. It doesn't always have to be just using the TreePlotter software to get at this data. So that was useful for both the grounds crew and the public works department in South Orange. So the public works department maintains all the public trees that are between the curb and the sidewalk, and so they have different ways of reporting on the work, and which neighborhoods or have they addressed in knowing where to plant more trees. They also have a initiative in town right now where they're putting these cages, these metal fences around the younger trees, so that the deer don't they use them to rub their antlers and to get the fluffy fur or whatever's on the antlers. Specific size trees fit really nicely in between their antlers, and so those trees get really damaged from the deer. And so the initiative right now is knowing which trees need cages and which trees already have these little fences protection put around them. And so that's where these reports are useful for the public works department in town right now. So there's many uses of this data for the South Orange Environmental Commission and the South Orange Village, different departments. And so they believe they have 10 to 15,000 public trees, but they lost their manual inventory that was on paper in a flood, and they don't really know how many they have because that was many years ago that they started the inventory. And what was so funny was this one woman came out when students were on the street identifying the trees in front of her house, and she says, when she was in her 60s, 70s maybe, when I was a Girl Scout, I was part of the original tree inventory in this town, and we counted trees and measured them, and that she was actually part of the paper tree inventory that had been created. And here the students were out doing it again now, and it was with their little technology gadgets. So she was happy to talk about how she had helped with the first inventory that was lost. So we're starting from scratch with this public tree inventory in South Orange. We're starting from scratch, and so we've got the first hundreds of trees in there now, but there are thousands, and so we will be getting to all of them in the coming seasons. And so the project that we have every semester, it's not like we work all semester on this. It's like during 1 week of the fall semester, right, we have the students out there doing this identification and inventory. And so because we have so many other projects and assignments that we do for the classes. So it's not like we've been working on this for 2 semesters, for 4 months each semester. No, it's just 1 week each semester. And so we are adding weekend projects for students, and we are adding extra credit projects for students to be working on this, you know, for more than just 1 week, because we see that it's taking a long time to do this, and it's a lot of trees. So so we're modifying the timeline and the project plan as we learn, as we go along. So at this time, we created a video of this project and how well it's going, and we're using the video to communicate to residents and to communicate to anyone that wants to help out more students and more residents to continue with this inventory. So so that's where we are right now. So what I always like to say, like, what's the impact of this project? And so we can say that students are connecting with nature outdoors and appreciating, right, the beauty of our campus, and learning about trees. And learning about it in a different way than if they were just kind of reading about it. They're they're observing the trees, they're measuring the trees, they're seeing the bark, they're understanding the damage, the condition of the tree. And what they noticed on a lot of trees, that people kind of put nails in there and hang signs on their trees in front of their house, I guess like for a sale or for some kind of event or something. And they just noticed that so many of the public trees have nails and have damage to them that people have done to them. And it's just like they would have never noticed that if they didn't have this project. And so they're just like, wow, people need to, you know, care for these trees and not leave these nails in them and not be nailing anything to them for that matter. So so that's what you find in urban landscapes, right? That people, that there's varying levels of caretaking that are needed for these trees. So so then, of course, through TreePlotter, they get to learn about the eco benefits of the trees. And so so there's you know, the ecosystem benefits are just you know, it's a really good teaching tool for me to talk about all the many benefits of trees that students need to know about. And then they learn about how this technology of TreePlotter and their phone and all these apps, how we can address environmental challenges that we have today with this technology. That it's there's so much that technology helps us with today, to know about global warming and to have solutions, right? And then the next bullet, so they're learning about data collection and analysis and insight, and the powerful insight you can gain from all this data. So that's a good teaching point. And then they're learning about, you know, what it takes to maintain you know, students, a lot of them, they don't notice how, you know, they don't notice natural beauty. They're on their phones, or they're running from building to building. And so, so knowing and seeing that, you know, this beauty overtly is really, is eye-opening for them. And then understanding the different departments at Seton Hall, the facilities engineering department, and the grounds crew, and what they, how campus works, right? How the cost of maintaining all of these trees. They learn about that. And then they learn about the South Orange Environmental Commission, and what volunteerism is in a community, and what it takes to run a municipal government, and all of that, maintaining the trees. And then working in teams and collaborating with key partners. I mean, that's what life is about right now. That's how we're going to solve all these global issues, and global warming solutions are going to come to life with collaboration and teamwork. So it's important that they learn that. So I think that's the end of this PowerPoint. I just wanted to bring up, let me bring this up real quick. Can you see that? How does that look, Evan?
Yep, that's great. We can see that on the screen. Thank you.
So in summary, I wanted to just show these beautiful students and all that they're learning. We're reading the book Climate, A New Story by Charles Eisenstein, and we're learning about the the value of trees in the hydrology cycle. Like the water cycles on this earth are, you know, regulated by trees. And that's why the hydrology cycle is broken right now, because trees, the amount of trees that are gone is just, the biodiversity loss is astonishingly, is horrible. And so they're learning about the carbon cycle and hydrology cycles and the value of trees in those cycles, and how to make a difference. Let's figure out how to scroll down here. Okay, so, and then with the drawdown, Paul Hawkins' textbook, they're learning about global warming, solutions to reverse global warming and how to scale them. And they learn about the Buddhist practices of Thich Nhat Hanh, and how he says to kiss the earth with every step. And what that means is that every step you take, everything you buy, everything you eat, it all matters, and it all affects the world. It all affects what's happening in the world. So if you can make a difference, and individually, with every action, with every step you take. And then as well as you're stepping around campus and hugging these trees, that you're kissing the earth with every step. So so we love Thich Nhat Hanh. And then here they are in the streets. We were really we were focusing on safety, of course, of the students. So we wanted them to wear green hats and have buttons on that said that they were part of the Seton Hall University tree inventory team, so that nobody would, you know, question. It wouldn't be like, you know, so nobody would be alarmed to see students, you know, on their lawn. The students weren't on the lawn, and you can see how this is such a big curb here, from curb to sidewalk, how large an area this is. So some of the streets in South Orange had very large areas where the public trees were growing, and some of them had very, you know, narrow areas where the students either had a choice of standing in the street or on a lawn with little sidewalks. And so we wanted to just make sure that they were safe. And so they were learning all about how to be an arborist, you know, in training here with their phones, and using the Census Bureau way of going clockwise around a block and numbering the trees that they were identifying. And here they're shown planting a tree. So so we plant trees on campus as well, and so the students participate in that as well. And so we want them to learn how to plant trees correctly. And then here, this is here, the left from the bottom row is Barbara Bohr is on the left, the blonde, and then Walter Clark, and then Bill Haskins. These are the environmental commission members from South Orange. And so they come to campus, and the students know them, and they understand their roles, and that these are volunteer roles that these town members have. And so it's important for students to know that they can do that in their town as well. And so so then, most importantly, they learn about commitment of the facilities engineering department to help with this TreePlotter software, the software license, annual software license. And so I think that's all I want to show right now. Evan, if you want to take back the screen.
Yep, I'll certainly do that. And no, it's great information, Wanda. I really appreciate it. And what I always love most about our conversations is your passion for the environment, and sharing that passion with others. And you mentioned, you know, making a difference in your quote, and I think you are certainly making a difference in educating the next generation of the importance of the environment, and particularly the urban forest, the part the urban forest plays in that. So, you know, I commend you for that.
Thank you.
I'm going to show, I'm going to show your video now, and let me take that, Joel. We're going to watch that short video. I'm just going to pause, make sure the audio is okay, and then we'll kind of have a little bit of discussion, questions, and diving into the data and taking a look at that. So let me make this full screen. Oops, do something first here. I should have. So are you hearing the audio on
Yes.
that? Okay, perfect.
We're here in South Orange admiring these beautiful street trees, the trees between the curb and the sidewalk that the town maintains. The trees are the teachers. They teach us that we're not separate from nature, we are nature. What we do to the trees, we do to ourselves. So we're here to say thank you to these beautiful trees and to inspire students and residents to join our tree inventory team. So what we're doing today is we're taking an inventory of the public trees in this specific neighborhood. So all of you participate in some way in gathering this information and creating the South Orange Public Tree Inventory. Why do we do this? We love trees. They give us fresh air, they clean the air, the water, help with stormwater runoff, provide shade when we need it, add beauty to these neighborhoods.
I'm very happy to have this collaboration with Seton Hall University. Seton Hall University has inventoried their own trees on campus, and Wanda can have a project for her students to continue learning about the suburban forest. Two groups essentially are going to be looking at the inventory. One is the Environmental Commission themselves, the members of the Shade Tree Group, which are specifically interested in maintaining the trees and helping protect the trees long term. The second group would be the Public Works Department, who's in charge of maintaining the trees in terms of trimming, their overall health, the planting, the removal when necessary. So for both of those groups, it will be an excellent tool to help manage the overall health of the entire suburban forest here.
There's a lot of money that we leave on the table if we do not get this inventory. There are a lot of grants available for additional trees. The first question they ask, do you have an inventory? We have to say no or partial, unfortunately. So thanks to Seton Hall, at least we've made some significant progress on this.
It's going to be a long-term process to count all the trees in South Orange. Don't know how many we have, public trees. I think it's between 10,000 and 15,000. We're going to find out. So it's going to take a while. So, you know, figuring out what worked today and then doing it again is going to be what's next.
It's a living, breathing database, and so it is meant, it's not set in stone. It is meant to be changed and tweaked as we go along.
One of our long-term goals is to have more individuals who are personally invested in and aware of the various trees we have in town. We would like people who are willing to take the time to learn how to use TreePlotter, to be able to just, when they have some free time, inventory in their neighborhood.
This tree is healthy, so we take a picture of the leaf and we see what the app says it is.
Green ash.
Green ash.
Green ash. I learned that there's so many benefits that trees give us. They give us oxygen, first and foremost. They absorb carbon dioxide. When it rains, they also absorb rainwater, so it doesn't go into the drain.
How amazing it was that just such a small group of people were able to identify so many trees in one block, and imagining what a huge group of people can do for this community.
It's beautifying our environment, so it's a great thing to have.
We're planting trees every day, not for ourselves, but for those who come after us, for generations after them.
Thank you to the collaborators who are making this project possible. The students with their passion, Planet Geo, the software company that brought us TreePlotter. Thank you to the South Orange Environmental Commission and residents who are helping with this public tree inventory, and the Facilities Engineering Department for funding environmental studies projects for growing a greener campus.
Great, very cool video. Wanda, I think that's really powerful there.
Thank you.
And, you know, I think just in summary, what really interests me in this project is, you know, the collaboration effort in, it's a very, you know, similar story across the country and world where, maybe municipal budgets or university budgets are, a limited resource, and not everybody can go out there and pay tens of thousands of dollars to collect a tree inventory. And so, finding creative solutions to achieve that, I think is always really interesting, and pairing that as a mutual benefit where, you can gather a group of students that will benefit with education and learning different skills and information for their career moving forward, and an awareness of the environment and the importance of the urban forestry, but while, providing some real data for, the village of South Orange to, act on and better care. And, it's sometimes a lot of organizations kind of, look at the challenge of a limited resource as far as funding and say, well, we can't do anything. But there are answers out there, and especially, as crowdsourcing and citizen science grows in popularity, I think there are creative solutions out there to at least do something. I think that's the key, is you are doing something, and you are providing some, even though it's a limited data set, number of trees, and limited attributes, you still are starting to get a picture of the urban forest and start making decisions on how to better manage the population. So that's always been really interesting to me. And then kind of on the note, I have a couple follow-up questions for you, and mostly with volunteer and crowdsourcing information. We get asked a lot, and we have different organizations of our clients that are doing volunteer programs and gathering data. I'm just wondering if you can share, you shared good insight into some of the training that you provided. I'm just wondering, maybe like one of the biggest challenges that you ran into or solved creatively, as far as, getting the students up to speed to where they could effectively go walk out on their own and start collecting good data.
It's a good question, and it's so interesting because students they're so smart, and they have this phone that they just love to use apps, and they're so curious and they click, and they're in the software and click, they can figure it out. And I'm just like slowly explaining things, and they're already like photographing a tree and have the tree record, inputted. It's just unbelievable how quickly they just learned how to use the software, and it wasn't like I had to explain much. The software is very intuitive for young people to figure it out themselves. And we had a very brief demo in the classroom where I showed them the software on a screen with my computer on a screen, and they saw it in a large version on a screen, how the streets and the tree pins were mapped. And then when they got outside, I mean, they just they had a real easy time with their phones. So it was it was a big question mark. How easy was it going to be for students that knew nothing about data collection and nothing about the TreePlotter software? How quickly could they just get up and running and be doing this? And the answer was they could do it quickly. And then the hardest part was like on campus, we had a lot of exotic ornamental trees. And so the public trees, it's easy because it's an ash, it's a maple, it's an oak. I mean, it's pretty, like there's not too many ornamental public trees, right? They're the standard sycamore, especially in South Orange, there were a lot of old trees, big old trees, and it's oaks, sycamore, maple, and ash. And so it was, the tree ID was very easy with the public trees. It was a little bit more challenging on campus with the exotics. And so that's what, so that's initially what we learned. Yes.
Yeah, no, I think tree ID is certainly a pretty common challenge. I mean, it is really, it's an intensive skill and knowledge to learn, because there are just so many species out there. And as an arborist, I took a full semester length course on just tree ID. So spent 4 months learning scientific names and identifying and being tested on ID. And, you know, that kind of even just lays the foundation. And I learned more, you know, kind of getting out in the field and on the job. So certainly tree ID is a very common challenge. And you mentioned, you know, technology starting to solve some of these challenges and some of the apps that you've used. And, you know, I think that's only going to get better to where really, you know, a picture or using the phone to take an image will better ID trees. And then, you know, it's never going to be perfect because it's nature and there's all these cross pollinizations and hybrids that occur. So, but yeah, no, I think it's really interesting, you know, training and using technology in that way as well. I just wanted to pop open, this is your main campus site. And so a lot of them, like you mentioned, I think these were not specified because the student didn't know. So that kind of makes sense. And then you can go through a process of filling in these blanks essentially with maybe an expert who is trained in tree identification.
Can I interject here, Evan? Thank you.
Sure.
So this screen right now is not as clear as it was. I don't know how it is for other attendees, but right now it's kind of blurry for me since the video. So like the video came through clear, but now that you've popped back into the TreePlotter software here, it's not showing up that well on my screen.
Let me just try resharing that screen. I'm going to refresh. Thanks for that note. Let's see.
Like you can't, yeah.
Oh, you know what? I think because I optimized this for full screen.
Okay, better, perfect.
Is that better? Okay,
yes,
cool.
Thank you.
Yep, cool. I had a setting on. So yeah, just showing, you know, the main campus. You've divided up the inventory. You've identified, I think, potential future sites that you would like to inventory. It seems like in the app. And this is just one of the sites. So this is the main campus that you have here, has some additional trees. But so far, you know, 919 trees just on campus, which is quite an accomplishment. And you were mentioning, we were talking a little bit earlier about, you know, maybe some data quality control, particularly because this is coming from, you know, students who may not have the training to do a full tree assessment. And
Right.
So we talked a little bit about, you know, how you can view and clean up some of the data. And so I just wanted to demonstrate a couple of those things here in the TreePlotter. So using the filter, we can filter on users who added the tree, and I had saved a particular one. So Hannah, we can look at running this filter, and we can see all the trees that Hannah has added. So on the main campus, at least, she's added 18 trees. We can kind of pop into those trees or look in the data table and quickly identify if there's perhaps any missing information. So she actually looks like she's pretty good filling out, you know, all the appropriate conditions and sizes. And so her data set looks pretty intact. I imagine you could run similar filters and maybe find some gaps where someone may have missed a diameter or a condition, and quickly edit and find those trees and assess those and supplement the data. So that's something we were talking about earlier, and using the filters. And
what I had to instruct the students that they had to put the land use in there, fill in that data field, because that's how the ecosystem benefits data is then calculated. So, so they had to add in there that the land use was either residential, right, or whatever it was, so that then the ecosystem benefits could come through.
Yeah, exactly. Good point. So, you know, having those minimum required fields and attributes that you want the volunteers to collect is really important to set that expectation. Here are the things you need to collect, or we really would like you to collect, and then maybe there's an additional observations or things or notes that you can put in. And you mentioned that you started collecting information on the deer guards, whether the tree had a deer guard or not, so then the city could use that to supplement their maintenance with that aspect. So this is the ecosystem benefit tool that you're mentioning, and it's a integration with iTree. So these are the iTree Streets values of the campus trees in aggregate. So as of now, with the inventory, your campus is achieving almost $40,000 in annual net benefit from these trees. This is always a very popular tool. iTree is not our tool. iTree is developed, led by the U.S. Forest Service and expanding across the globe as becoming sort of the foremost authority on environmental benefits of trees. And so this is really compelling information to share with various stakeholders to show how valuable these trees are. And oftentimes, our work is we have to put this into dollars to really get people's attention. But sharing things like this, you mentioned in the video and earlier in their presentation, some of the stormwater benefits, some of the energy savings associated with shade and other things, air quality. Here's the big one too, the carbon sequestration and storage, which a lot of us focus on. So, and also I just wanted to highlight the fact that because you have these populations divided into different sites, we can actually kind of quickly go and look at the South Orange population within the application, isolate those trees, and view statistics on the city trees as opposed to the campus trees. So if you see now, the eco-benefit tool is calculating on the South Orange trees. And so far with the 1,200 trees, which is, wow, that's really awesome to get up to 1,200 trees with volunteers. Showing that, the annual net monetary benefit is $125,000 a year with just the inventory collected so far. I think in the video, you're at the gentleman was estimating there's somewhere between 10 and 15,000 trees. So that's going to be really powerful as you enhance the inventory to cover more trees.
Is there a way, Evan, to print this, like to get this snapshot in an like I want to put this slide in a PowerPoint? How would I do that?
Yeah, so we do have tree reports and various chart reports, and let's see, actually they are in, I'll have to get that information to you. Let's see, you put me on the spot and
No, I'm just so that ecosystem benefits is just so powerful. I would love to summarize that to my students to say, this is what our impact is so far.
Yep, no, absolutely. I'll get you that information and
Thank you.
a workflow to do that for sure.
Yep, excellent. Thank you.
So we had a couple questions from the audience. First of all, you got some kudos on pulling the two entities together. Great job. That's from Brian Gray.
Thank you.
He also asked, do you mark the tree in a physical way that corresponds with the tree ID in TreePlotter? So I'm assuming asking about physical tree tags on the trees.
No, so we don't mark the trees. No, everything is in TreePlotter. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we see a little bit of both. I think with technology, we are in some ways trying to replace those physical tree tags. But there's always a use case to have the physical world linked with the digital world in some way. We also have other projects, one project in Colombia, and they actually are using QR codes. So individual QR codes on all the trees in the inventory where someone can scan that QR code. It will take in the tree plotter, zoom into that tree. Not a simple project by any means, but that's another alternative to linking the physical and digital world.
I would have to say we are linking our data to the Census Bureau data so that we're understanding in different levels of economics in neighborhoods. So income disparities and linking, do those neighborhoods have less or more trees, right? So, and then for the health benefits of trees, we are putting trees where, more underprivileged neighborhoods, we're putting more trees. So that's a way of mapping. With the Census Bureau, you map clockwise around a block for the house numbers and for the residents in these, whether it's homes or apartments. And then we're mapping to that with the tree numbering so that we can we can map to where, in a numbering way, in a increasing numerical order, where these trees are geographically in town, so that we can understand the neighborhoods that have more or less trees and where to plant more trees.
Yeah, very cool. And we should definitely talk more about that, because with other projects, we have brought in some of those census data layers into TreePlotter. And so you can visualize at least those boundaries and maybe some attributes behind them. We commonly do that with our TreePlotter canopy tool to match canopy area and express that in as a census tract. So what is the canopy coverage in this particular census tract? So we should definitely talk more offline about that. And
do you want to, do you want to bring up the tree data record just to show the tract where we put the tract, the Census Bureau tract and block in there, so that just a tree.
Oh, did you already do that?
Yeah, add a tree. Just click on add a tree.
Okay, let's see. So you have it in the attributes of the tree?
Tree details. Yeah, see if it's in the details there. Or, yeah, see you have the census tract and census.
Oh, okay. Yep. Perfect. So then you can.
That's how we require the students to put that information in there.
Awesome. Yep. So then you can go and census tract or block. What was it? 3008. Oh, there we go. So you can isolate just trees within certain tracts or blocks.
And then, right. And then right, you export it, and and then you can, through Excel, you can map to the Census Bureau data through Excel and analyze. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, great idea there. Okay, well, we're kind of coming up on the top of the hour. If you'd like to ask a question, get it in now. Otherwise, again, I'd really like to thank you, Wanda. I think the work you're doing is really awesome, and I know you take a lot of your personal time in these projects, and so that's always really cool. And I'd just like to commend you on the awesome work you've done, and thank you again for presenting today. And certainly, we are here to continue to support you in your efforts as we find your work really awesome and helpful to the environment. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I mean, thank you for the tools, these tools. None of us are arborists. Me, I'm a faculty, and students, we're not arborists, but we can actually do a lot of this work, and then we can bring in an arborist, a consultant, to help us to make sure it's it's correct, and we can bring in arborists and specialists to at specific points. But we are doing the data gathering, not being an arborist, and this tool allows us to do that, and we're very, very, very grateful. Thank you, Evan.
Yep, you're very welcome. I mean, it's not only me, it's the whole team, and so I appreciate that. And we'll be sharing, Wanda has a couple of follow-up resources and links to the video that we saw for more information. So we'll provide those to the attendees in a follow-up email. But thank you all for attending and learning more about this project. We really appreciate it. We do have our third webinar. Actually, let me put up the PowerPoint here for CEU code. Can everybody see? Wanda, can you see that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So this is the CEU code that you will use to submit to the ISA for this presentation. So you will get a 1 credit for 1 hour presentation here. Don't check back tomorrow. We have another live webinar going off tomorrow, focusing on tree risk prioritization in management and maintenance for cities and counties. So be sure to join that one. If you can't make that one, as with all of our webinars, we do have on-demand webinars. We are recording this and all of our webinars to view and stream at a later date. So you can go to planetgeo.com for that. Under resources, you can go to treeplotter.com under resources, and that will link you to that page, and you can view this and all of our previous webinars. So thanks again for attending. Thank you, Wanda. And with that, we'll conclude the webinar, and we'll see you out there in the forest.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.